and what our ideas were behind this, and show a little bit of how to use it, and show some examples, and then open things up for questions. I would love to hear from all of you and make this a more interactive presentation. So, with that, so this is what I was doing before Storify. Not every day, but I was a journalist working for 12 years for the Associated Press. And this photo is in Iraq during the 2003 U.S. invasion there. I was embedded with the U.S. Marines as a reporter, and covered that news. In Afghanistan in 2001, I covered the aftermath of September 11th, and when the country was liberated from the Taliban. I covered the Indonesia tsunami. I've covered in Pakistan a bunch of stories. I've been to North Korea several times when I was the AP bureau chief in South Korea. So I spent a lot of years doing sort of regular reporting on the ground, seeing what was happening in the world and writing stories about it for the AP, which is one of the world's oldest and largest news organizations. And at the same time, obviously, things were kind of changing in the way technology was working. And we saw things happen like this photo, which I don't know how many of you recognize. This is from Twitter. Was a photo of this plane that landed in the Hudson River in New York City. And somebody happened to be there on one of the boats that went out to rescue people from this plane and took a photo, obviously, and sent it to Twitter. And this photo was seen all around the world. Because, there was no reporter obviously waiting in the water for a plane to land in front of them. But, there was a real person there. And because of, smartphones and wireless internet technology and cameras built into phones, you now have people constantly creating this sort of thing all the time. So that really is kind of, in a way, where the idea from Storify came from. We're thinking about, what would the AP be like if you were to create it today? If you were to start over and you wanted to create a global news agency that covered all the world, how would you do that? And, yes, you would want to have reporters like I was doing, going out and seeing things, but at the same time, you have every citizen basically with a smartphone who is, uploading photos, uploading tweets, uploading videos to YouTube, sending Instagram photos, all this media that's just amazing and amazing source material to use for stories. Why would you not want to put that in your story if you could get, a photo like this from the ground? So, I mean, that's amazing kind of opportunity. At the same time, it's an amazing flood of information, and there's just so much of this out there right now. We really are in an age of media overload. Twitter recently said that they get 1 billion tweets sent every 3 days. So every 3 days, 1 billion tweets. On YouTube, they have 36 hours of video are uploaded every minute to YouTube. I mean, such amazing quantities of media that you could not possibly sift through it all. So that's why, even more important now, we need people who are going to sift through all this information and amplify the voices that matter, elevate the things that are actually important. And I think really that's why journalists have an essential role here. There is so much information that you need the help of computers, but I still think in the end, the role of journalists, which has always been the same, is even more crucial now. Taking a lot of information, distilling it down, and saying why it's important, giving the context to it, checking facts, checking the history, saying that this person said this yesterday and now they're saying something else today, and being able to show that. That is really important, even more so than ever when we're flooded by media today. Because you'll find things, and I was just going to show some examples of things from Storify stories. So this was a tweet sent by this guy Shoaib Attar, who's at really virtual on Twitter. I don't know how many of you know this. He's saying, "Go away, helicopter, before I take out my giant swatter," which like a fly swatter. I'm curious what the Italian word for that would be, but anyway, I'm sure it sounds better in Italian. So what is this? Like, what was he talking about? Well, it turns out he was actually there in Pakistan during the raid that ended up killing Osama bin Laden. He was actually live tweeting the whole thing, and he didn't realize it. He just heard a bunch of helicopters and explosions in his city and was wondering what's going on. And he has a whole series of tweets where he basically, was reporting live from this event that only later he realized what it was. And, it's kind of amazing to think that somebody, even in the middle of Pakistan, during this, top secret operation, was there reporting on it. Again, proving the fact that there is amazing source material out there. And he, was discovered by a lot of news organizations. This was one of our most quoted tweets of the year, actually, from Storify Stories because of this. This is a photo that was sent on Twitter from a story that the Washington Post did. And this was some tornadoes that struck the southern United States, Joplin, a city in Missouri. And this photo, okay, it's an interesting photo that, any photographer could have taken. It's, decent, showing this church that was destroyed. But what's really interesting is that this is somebody who personally sent the photo and wrote, this is where I got married and my best friend kids went to school, St. Mary's in Joplin. I mean, so it's not just any photographer taking the picture. It's actually a really personal story about what happened here. And that again kind of shows the, what you can find by looking through social media, a different angle on the story. And this person would be great to talk to and do a whole story about the church and explore deeper. But this was also included in a Storify story. This story with Steve Jobs dying last year obviously was one of the biggest news stories of the year too. And the Daily Beast, a U.S. news site, put together a great Storify story where they looked for Apple employees on social networks and found what they were saying in reaction to Steve Jobs dying. So this quote, "I feel sick and my heart is pounding. Everything about this is heartbreaking." I mean, so again, you can't go walk around Apple's, headquarters because it's, obviously kind of a secret place where they don't let journalists mill about randomly. But, people were saying what they thought on social media, and this was something in a story. Another story recently that made a lot of waves in Silicon Valley, Facebook buying Instagram for $1 billion. And, people did a bunch of Storify stories with this. This is a pretty well-known investor and entrepreneur. So he said, giving up 1% of your market cap to take out biggest threat is a savvy move. So, he thinks $1 billion is not overpriced for Instagram, like many people might think. But then you also have kind of funnier comments about it. This guy, Facebook buys Instagram for $1 billion. Idiots, they could have downloaded it for free. So, okay, I mean, I don't know who this guy even is, but it's just kind of funny, and you can get, interesting things, again, that people you might not know about. I wasn't sure how well the internet would work here, but apparently it does work. So I'm going to go ahead and just jump into like what Storify looks like for those of you who haven't seen it before, and show kind of basic example of what all this means. So Storify, this is the editing interface. So what we have is on the left side your story, which I have blank right now, and on the right side you can search all different social networks to find material for the story. And I just typed in, IJF12 and see what people are saying. And basically, this is going through Twitter using Twitter's search to then give us, the results here. And if I see something I want, and I'm just going to kind of randomly grab stuff here because I don't know what this is actually saying in Italian, but some things are here. So I can, say I want to quote this tweet. I just grab it and pull it into my story. Say I want this photo. I just grab that and it gives me the photo. Say I want to look on, let's see if there's anything on YouTube about IGF-12. Okay, yeah, there is. So here's an interview with somebody. I'm just kind of throwing this stuff in together. If I was really doing this, I would be a little more careful. Obviously, if I wanted to tell a story, I would think about what that is. But just kind of throwing stuff in here. And, I can type my headline, say IJF12, here's what's happening. If I can type a summary, I'm just randomly typing, and start typing, different things. Like this is an interview with the top editor of Mother Jones magazine. And I can add text between these things. I can move them around. Say I want this actually to be up here, this tweet. Say I want to look for Instagram. Are there any photos with IGF-12? Wow, okay, there's a photo of me. Or no, that's not me. That's okay. So I can just grab stuff from Instagram. And the key with all this is these sources are all still like elements of what they are. This tweet is still retweetable. You can still reply to it. You can link to the original thing. The photo is linked to the original object on Instagram. As you can see. the video. I can click here, I can go to YouTube where the original video is. So you're pulling from all these sources, but the idea is really we want to keep these elements as they are. That's loud. Keep the elements as they are and still have them be interactive and be the social objects that they are, and not lose the information around them. So if I want to publish this story, I can just go ahead and click publish, and it's going to be kind of a random thing. And that means that then I can, the story is here on Storify, and what you can do with this is actually tell people that they've been quoted in the story. So we really wanted to give this feedback loop to all stories. People, as you probably know, when you interview them for a news story, they'll always ask you, when is this going to run? When do I get to see myself on TV? When do I get to read this in the paper? So we tried to bring that to online journalism and let you automatically send tweets to all these people telling them, you've been quoted in the story, come check it out. And we find that people really like this, and they love to see that somebody actually noticed what they had to say. And they'll retweet that to their followers, or they'll reply back to you, and it'll start a conversation. Again, the idea here really was not just to pull from social media as a source, but also to think of ways to push back to social media and to really create publishing that is interactive and social and dynamic, that takes advantage of the web for what it is. Because really, we feel like a lot of publishing on the web is still thinking in terms of paper. You write a post, you publish it, and then the next day you come back and you write another post. Why the web is not paper? I mean, the web is a constantly evolving, dynamic thing. You could keep updating the same story and have it be updated on the page, which you can do in Storify. You can keep going back and adding to things. And we've had people actually do stories over weeks and months over a similar topic because it was something that was constantly evolving. They wanted to show people what was happening. So this story is now published on Storify, and what you can do is take the story and actually embed it anywhere on any website. Just like you would embed the video in here, you can actually embed the entire story somewhere else. And again, the idea here was really, we don't want to fight the internet like the way the internet works. The internet is based on letting things spread easily, like YouTube videos that can be embedded anywhere. You can actually make infinite number of copies of something and still preserve the original, right? I mean, that's what digital technology is all about. So we really thought, let a story spread. Let it be published in many places, but you'll still always, be credited. The author is still there, and you can actually see all the views that your story is getting on all different sites. So let me just jump into some examples of what stories look like. Actually, let me go here. So really, we've seen people, use this for all kinds of different stories. There's news stories, which is, something is happening. It could be weather. It could be earthquake. It could be an election, and people are reacting to it. It's affecting lots of people, and Storify is a great way to kind of pull together what people are saying just by passively looking at what's out there on social networks. For events, like a conference here, this is a great thing. People are here. They're all posting photos. They're tweeting about it. To pull together stories on that, it's pretty good. Again, if you weren't here right now watching that hashtag, you're never going to actually see what happens, right? It's all going to be lost. If you try to search for this on Twitter, on Instagram, on YouTube, on Facebook, tomorrow it might be okay. The next day it's going to be pretty hard. And after that, you're already going to be overwhelmed with so much other media. It's going to be pretty impossible to find anything. And after a week, actually, Twitter search basically stops working. So that's it. So unless you're preserving it in some way, otherwise, this will all be lost just in the flood of information. So again, events are great. Debates, people talking about things on Twitter. This is really hard to kind of track. Again, unless you're following the conversation in real time and you happen to be there, you're not going to know why this person is responding to the other person. But we've seen a lot of people use this to pull together a conversation and tell it again. Memes, kind of these, funny internet things that take off where people start photoshopping different elements. Like there was one with Angelina Jolie when she showed her leg at the Oscars, and all these people started taking Angelina Jolie's leg and putting it into all these other photos. Stuff like that kind of is funny, and people use it for that. We've also seen brands use it quite a lot, which is interesting because that was not what we originally thought of for Storify, but companies want to know what people are saying about them. So they've used it to record that. Because again, if they didn't save it, it would be lost. Also, brands trying to, actually foster conversations and use it as a way to engage, which I'll talk about a little bit more in a second. So this is an example, again, of like straight news type coverage. I mean, the Washington Post, again, here using this for an earthquake that hit Mexico. The Weather Channel, which uses us quite a lot, they don't have, so many journalists on staff. Also, they couldn't possibly have a person in place every time something might happen. So the first way to get something out on the ground is usually going to be by using what people are posting on social media, photos, videos, tweets, whatever is there. This was a kind of amazing story. Let me jump out quickly and show this story. Put together by the social media editor of Reuters, Anthony DeRosa. And if I can find my pointer. Where he basically went through all of last year in social media and put together an entire story from Tunisia to Egypt to Libya to Syria to Occupy Wall Street to protests in Russia. I mean, this year where we had all these amazing protests happening, and he really went through and carefully found these critical. Yeah, here's something with Yevgeny Morozov, who's here at the festival. Mona El Tahawi, who's a famous blogger. I mean, he pulled in videos from Tunisia. It just kind of goes on, and this is a huge story. This is the White House where they sent a photo of Obama talking to Mubarak, and through this, he kind of narrated with his text like what was going on, but also included all the actual, elements from the ground, the real reports from the ground, and pieced together this pretty amazing timeline, which, again, if you were to try to find all these things now, it would be pretty impossible, basically, to find. So that's another kind of straight news story. Another interesting user we have is the White House, and they actually use us pretty frequently. And what they do is they have regular conversations with people on Twitter, and they put somebody from the administration on Twitter and let anybody ask questions, and they'll respond to anybody's question on Twitter. Again, if you're watching that at that moment, like that's great, you might see what happens. But if you aren't there, you would never really benefit from this information. So what they do is they pull together the conversations in Storify and then post them on whitehouse.gov. So even if you aren't watching Twitter at that moment, you can still see what happened in that conversation. And this is actually something else that they've also been doing, which is really interesting, and I think something that journalists can learn from. So last year there was this debate over a payroll tax, and they were kind of trying to push for this to be passed through Congress. And so they got people, just regular people, to start tweeting using this hashtag $40 and say, what does that mean to you? If we are able to save your taxes and you get $40 more a month, what would you do with that money? And this became a trending topic across the United States because so many people were sending replies, and they used Storify to pull this together and pick the best things. They're actually doing that now again with a different thing about student loans and interest rates. So they've actually used this as a way to kind of get people to respond to them and talk about a hashtag, and then actually pull together the best stuff in Storify. So it's almost like a contest, and we find people really engage with these types of stories where they might have the potential to be included. They want to come back and see what is included, who's getting quoted, who's being used in the story. I think it's really a different way of thinking about a story as not just, this is a thing you write, you put it out there, people read it, and maybe they do something or they don't, maybe they leave a comment on the bottom. I mean, in this case, the story is really being done collaboratively with the audience, where, this is something that's evolving, people are adding to it. And it's a different way of thinking about journalism as more of a starting a conversation than just writing something and putting it out there. Just another use here is this is a brand use, since I mentioned that too. This is from Pepsi using us at South by Southwest to pull together what people were saying about this, conference thing they had set up there. So we really have seen a lot of brands use it. I guess PR and journalism, it's always kind of the opposite of one another. But again, they're able to use this and show that real people are talking about what they're doing. So again, I think to think about how this applies to journalism, I mean, brands want these real people testimonials, right, to be included as part of what they're saying to prove, like, okay, somebody likes us, they're saying great things about us. I think for journalists too, as journalists face sort of a crisis of credibility in the U.S., at least, the opinion of journalists is not that high because people think, oh, they're just writing what they want to say, and they're not really telling the real story. But if you can actually include real voices in your story, and again, that are linked to the real account, you can't say you're misquoting somebody when it's actually directly their tweet or their photo or their video. I mean, this is really showing transparency and the original source of your reporting. So I think that's pretty powerful to also help journalists, show that they're really a credible storyteller. Just one last kind of little example. So this is actually my wedding, which was 2 months ago. So we did, I mean, this is a personal use, which has been used somewhat. Again, people are posting all this stuff to social networks. Like I posted photos from the wedding and was tweeting. All these other people were there. And so what we did is we said, okay, we have a hashtag for our wedding. So use this hashtag, and I sent an email to everybody coming, post your photos, post video, whatever you want to, and we'll put together all this stuff using Storify. So now I actually have this, album of social media from the wedding, which again, if I were to try to go back and find all these things, it would be pretty hard, even though it's only 2 months ago. But now, I kind of have this preserved. So yeah, that's Storify. I mean, we've been being used by all sorts of sites. 22 of the top 25 news sites are using Storify. Just an example, like this is a page from a day during the election when we have stories here by the Wall Street Journal, PBS, NBC, Mashable, the New York Times, Mother Jones, all sorts of different people. We also, as I mentioned, are being used by people like the White House, by brands, by universities, NGOs, like the World Economic Forum was using us during Davos to pull together what people were saying during panels. So really been seeing a wide use of this. Something new that we just launched too, which I'll show you the quick video about, is an iPad app. We really thought, this dragging and dropping really lends itself to the iPad. So let me play this just quickly, and I'll talk about it a little more. So, I mean, part of the reason we did this is we really thought that touch computing is the future of the way that people will use computers. So Apple has actually said that they can see, that the tablet market is eventually going to be bigger than the laptop PC market. And we see this, obviously accelerating more and more with Apple just releasing their recent sales results showing how many people are getting iPads. I mean, the future of computing will be touching things. Everything will be a screen. And we think this way of dragging and dropping, mixing together media that's already out there is really well suited to a touch interface. So that's why we wanted to put this out there and not just think of tablets as reading devices, which it seems like most people kind of commonly assume tablets are for, but actually think of a way that a tablet could be a way to create content. So that's one of the kind of big things we wanted to put forward with that, and would be happy to have people experiment and see what they can do with it. So with that, I think I'm done. There's one other thing I guess I wanted to show, because I realize not many people have seen this, and let me just find my window here. So actually, yeah, this is just one way of putting together stories really quickly. This is kind of an expert tip. I just want to make sure I showed this to people, is that we also have a bookmarklet for pulling together material for a story. So actually, if you install the bookmarklet or a Chrome browser plugin in Storify, then you can actually be anywhere online and be grabbing things to use in your story. So I have it active here in Chrome, and if you see, I'm on Twitter, but actually now every tweet has a Storify button next to it. So I can, grab this, and it'll say Storify. I can grab this. And this also works on Facebook. So say I'm here, I want this. Oh, oops, whoa. Clicked in the wrong place. So say I'm here and I want to grab, some comment or this story that somebody mentioned, or a comment from here. I can just click on it. I can click on it there. And if I go back to Storify and create the story, it'll show up here in my story pad. So this is where things I've saved are kind of all right here. So these are the things I was just marking in other places. So again, because it's really quite difficult to find this stuff sometimes, we wanted to make it as easy as possible so you could be on Twitter, you can be in Facebook, and still pull things into the story. And this will work on a YouTube page, it'll work on a Flickr photo page. It will actually kind of figure out what you want to quote. It'll work on any web page. You can click, something here on the New York Times and say I want to quote something from this article after it loads. So say I want this. I just grab, that's kind of annoying. I guess I haven't paid for the New York Times. All right, fine, let's go somewhere else. So Yahoo News, this scandal with the Secret Service. Say I want to quote something from here. I can just select the text, and it's kind of tough to do on the screen. So then, I right-click, and I can actually storify this selection. So there, it's now okay. It'll tell me this. I can add this to the story pad. And now again, if I go back here, and refresh this, now I have this. This is a quote, and now if I pull it in, it'll actually create like a nice pull quote like this from anywhere on the web. So this is kind of a pro tip. I just wanted to make sure to mention that because I think this can be pretty powerful that you can be anywhere online and pull things into a story. So anyway, with that, I'm happy to take any questions and talk about anything at all about Storify or journalism in general. Yeah, sure. Business model. So right now, everything is totally free, actually, to use. So you can create an account using Twitter or Facebook, or even if not, you can create a Storify account. We are looking at potential business models, which either will be like pro features. So we've had people ask for specific features, like private stories, like more templates. So we're kind of looking at that as a way of charging. Also, eventually some sort of advertising on Storify itself. We really think we can do something different with advertising and make it social advertising that would sort of be, again, fit in with what Storify is. That you could have a social ad, which could be a tweet, it could be a YouTube video, it could be an Instagram photo that's actually sponsored in some way as advertising. So that's something we also are thinking about and would want to then share revenue back with the people creating stories. Other questions? Heather.
It's very quick and probably a bit simple, but can you show how you did that bookmark thing, or how you add that in to your Storify?
Sure.
And what if you don't use Chrome? Do you have to use Chrome to get that?
No, yeah, you don't have to use Chrome. So actually, it's kind of hidden, and we need to do a better job of this. Well, when you sign up, it'll take you to a place where you can grab the bookmarklet, or just here in Storify, if you click on this S and go to bookmarklet, you can grab it and then put it up as a regular bookmarklet in the bookmarks bar. So it'll work on Safari, on Firefox too. And the Chrome plugin is at just chrome.storify.com.
Yes. And another question. You showed that Storify is available on iTunes store. But this is a question that I can make to all the people that create some program like this. But you think that you will create an app like for Android or like for BlackBerry? How much is important to go in this platform too?
Yeah, no, we obviously would like to create apps in other platforms. Clearly, as far as tablets go, the iPad is way more prominent than any other tablet so far. So that's why we wanted to do that first. And we're still a very small team, actually. We only have 6 people working full-time at the company, including me. So we only have limited resources to do that. So that's why we kind of have to pick our battles and decided to do the iPad first. But in the future, certainly we would look to other platforms. More questions?
Alessandro Forlani, giornale Radio Rai. Do you think that a Storify page could be used on air or only as an extra content for a broadcast?
Could be used on air, like on television. Yeah, I definitely think so. This is kind of something else I should show. So actually here, this is a Storify story. I'm just going to show you the original one. This is something I put together quickly, which is kind of, that photo and other things, sort of historical moments, like tweets from social media. If I take this, I can actually just put /slideshow after it, and it'll turn this story into a slideshow, as you just kind of quickly saw there before. As long as the internet is going. So here we go. So actually, the reason we created this was partially to have this be on television. That you could be pulling together a story, post it on your website, but then actually if you had an anchor person on the air on a set with a screen behind them, you can put this on TV and be talking about it and, show this is what people are saying from the elections, from, whatever storm is happening, whatever big news is happening. And show the social media and incorporate it into a television show. So yeah, definitely we really want to be kind of this platform in the middle of different things. We want to take all these sources like Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, whatever. You curate it in Storify, and then you can output the story in all sorts of different ways. You can embed it on your site. You can embed the slideshow as well on your site. You can actually, this gets a little geeky here, but every story has an API, so you can actually access the data behind this story. So I can look, when you drag things in, this is kind of the behind the scenes magic that we do, is that we save all the metadata of every element that you put into a story. So, every detail about this picture and their profile, and if they have a location, their avatar, all the links to anything that's in there is all recorded in our database. So you could actually take this and do different things with it. If you're a developer, you could do a different visualization of a story. You could plot it on a timeline. You could put it on a map. You could create, something that had people with more Twitter followers being shown bigger and people with less followers smaller. We really want to unlock the potential of this as a story, which is really, not just text. It's actually an intelligent story. It knows you're quoting somebody from Twitter, so it knows that comes from a specific person. Because when you do that, that kind of opens up the... So, it kind of opens up the potential of what you can do when you look across stories and the data within stories. So this is Mashable, the social media blog. And again, with Steve Jobs' death, that story. So we looked at our data of people putting together stories about Steve Jobs' death and figured out who was being quoted the most across different stories. And so these are the top 10 tweets. Bill Gates of Microsoft, number 1, Barack Obama. Kind of people you would expect that should be quoted the most about Steve Jobs dying. So again, it'd be pretty hard to do that in like regular news stories, but for us it's actually quite easy because we can look at the Twitter user IDs of who's being quoted in our stories and put that together. So that's kind of the potential of looking at things in this different way. We really think eventually you would, if you start doing a story about some topic, we could actually tell you, oh, you're writing about IJF 12. well, here are the people who have been quoted a lot about IJF12 and other stories already. You might want to look at what they're saying today. That kind of thing to figure out like authority on a topic is really interesting. I mean, the other thing too is you see that these people don't always use hashtag Steve Jobs. I mean, that's on Twitter, like everybody knows, oh, you put a hashtag and that means it's associated with a certain thing. But not everybody actually used that topic. But because these tweets are all included together in this story where some people did use that hashtag, we can actually then we know these things are related to each other, right? They must be related to that hashtag if they were all quoted together. So we're able to say that things are related to each other that you might not otherwise know. We're able to say these people are somehow related to Steve Jobs, even though, if you go on Twitter and try to figure out, are these people authorities on Steve Jobs, it'd be impossible to know that. So again, the power of kind of doing stories in this new way really opens up a lot more in terms of the data behind this. And we've only kind of started to explore this. That's really another area where we think has a lot of potential. Oh, yes, here. Well, I guess she's coming with the microphone.
I'm curious, since you were like a foreign war correspondent, if you were out there right now, how might you use Storify to change your work, or would it affect how you reported from abroad?
Yeah, that's a good question. I guess I was reporting in a lot of places that didn't necessarily have people posting things on social media. I mean, I think I would be doing much more on social media. Again, I was reporting in places that did not have, 3G networks or anything like that in Afghanistan and Central Asia. So, but now these places are starting to get that technology. Now you can, start to send, tweets and photos from anywhere really easily. So I think I would be doing much more of that, and to try to be more transparent about what I was doing in real time, and then use Storify to kind of pull together, well, this is everything I said today, almost using that as like a draft of the story. I mean, I think that's probably how I would use it, given that, I would look certainly to see if other people are posting from these areas, but I suspect that they would not always be posting that much from these places. I think, just that use would be really interesting. I think it kind of opens up journalism more to be a transparent process too. Now through social networks, you can really say, I'm working on this story, this is what I'm learning, I just talked to this person, I quoted them. Readers can get a window into that process, and then you can start putting together the story in Storify, put together sort of a draft and say, this is how things are developing. And maybe as you learn more, you add more text, you add more, quotes from other people. You really create, a story and journalism as a process, not just as one finished product that you put out the paper at the end of the day, which I think, online, you have the power to do that. And that's really an amazing thing. Why not create something that's much more engaging? It almost creates, like, a story is almost like watching television, right? It's something live that's developing in front of you. I think, that's really the power of doing stories in this way, and I think something that needs to be explored much more. I think you see, like, live blogging kind of as an example of that, more and more people doing that to create, like, web experiences and news experiences that are like watching television. But even better, because you can actually engage with it yourself and respond and maybe even be included in the story. Was there a question over there somewhere? No? Or how are we doing on time? Yeah.
Hi, thank you for the presentation. I have two questions. The first is, how much money is the value now of Storify? And the second one, and do you hope in a merger with a big company in the future as Facebook or other social media? Thank you.
Okay. So what is the value of Storify? It's not really easy to put a price on these things. It's whatever somebody's willing to pay for it, I guess, is basically the value. So, I don't really know, actually, because we haven't tried to sell it to anybody to know what the value is. So yeah, as far as whether we would want to be sold to somebody, if somebody made us an interesting offer where we could still continue what we're doing, we would consider it. But again, we're doing this because we actually really care about journalism, about telling stories, about the power of bringing together social media and journalism. It's not that, this is just something we're looking to quickly flip and sell to somebody else. I mean, like I showed, I mean, I've been working as a journalist for many years and really want to push forward, you know, how we think about storytelling in this social media age. So that would be important to me no matter what we did. But Facebook has not offered us $1 billion yet.
Okay, and do you think that Storify, it's helping journalism to be easier, but I think it's could be also a bit much difficult because you have to choose between tons of contents that are generated by single users, and then you have to use much more criticism, and you have to just not drag and drop and just put together something just as it is. You have to choose carefully and to be very honest with your public, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, that is kind of a misperception, I suppose, too. Especially, it's hard because if I'm just like demoing to it, it looks, oh, it's so easy. You just kind of drag things in, and boom, there you have, you know, fresh story to put on your site. I mean, it should not be that easy, and it isn't that easy, really, like you're saying, to really think about, okay, we want to do a story about this political issue. Well, let's go look at the White House account. Did they say something about it? Who are the leading, you know, congressmen? We want to see what they're saying. Let's, you know, put a question out there to our readers and see what people respond and add that. I mean, I'm not saying that you can like make journalism magically easier somehow. I mean, that's why I think journalists are, again, more valuable than ever, because they have these skills of looking through lots of information, being critical about it, knowing which experts to ask if this is correct or not. I mean, that is really crucial. That's why, again, I think, you know, you can use technology only so far to filter down, to search through, you know, billions of tweets to get the ones about IJF-12, for example. But then you still have to decide what really is going to go into the story. And I think that's what readers respond to, too. We actually had a sort of earlier product in a way that was much more automated, just kind of filtering tweets by hashtags and making them look nice. But we realized people don't engage with things that are automatic. People want to know, oh, a person picked this, they wrote this story, and they wrote it because they thought they were trying to reach a certain audience. I don't think, you know, an algorithm can come up with a way to address an audience. And I think really people want to go to certain news sites because they feel, oh, this site speaks to me. I want to read, you know, in Italy, if it's Corriere della Sera or La Repubblica or whatever, I want to read the New York Times, I want to read Mashable because I like social media. I mean, you kind of feel a connection in some way with people. So I think that still is important. That's really the real skill of journalists in some way, is to be able to speak to an audience and kind of have this sense of what their audience needs. It can be informed by technology, like, yes, sure, you can look at your analytics and demographics and all these things on, you know, Google and other sites, but I still think, you know, you can't predict and analyze what's going to be interesting to people. It's just something you feel, you connect with an audience in a certain way. So I don't see computers replacing that anytime soon. I mean, interestingly, I guess I should add, there are startups that are working on automatically written stories. This company called Narrative Science, which actually takes, you know, financial reports, they take sports scores, like sports statistics, and automatically generate stories. But I mean, really what that is just kind of like synthesizing information and making it a little more readable. It's not really connecting to somebody in an emotional way. And those sorts of stories, I mean, are the stories journalists don't like to write anyway, because you're not really adding anything to it. I mean, I think as we see journalism evolve, it'll be more and more, you know, your voice, the analysis, the in-depth writing is what's really going to matter and connect with people. And journalists will do less of this kind of just rewriting press releases or writing sports stories from looking at statistics without even going to games. I mean, that's something that computers should do. Any other questions? Very shy here. There.
No, it's just bit technical. Can you just, but very easy, can you just let us see again how you can put the Storify button on your Facebook or Twitter? I'm not sure I will be able to do it again at home. So.
Okay, sure. So when you sign up and create a new account, you will get an email that will kind of send you instructions, I suppose, to do it. But also, if you're in here, if you create a story, it's this. This is really more hidden than it should be, and we need to do a much better job at exposing this. But it's under this S, that is Storify itself as a source. And if you click on Bookmarklet, then that's where you can grab. You literally just grab this and put it up here in the bookmarks bar, and then it creates a new bookmark. I'm just going to get rid of this so you see. So that's where I put it. So then it's right here. So then if I'm on Twitter, if I'm on Facebook, and I click that, it'll like activate it, and then every item on the page will have a Storify link, and then that gets saved here in this StoryPad thing, which kind of shows what I've marked in different places, and I can drag that into a story. I mean, there's actually some other kind of hidden things in here which are interesting. So say I can actually look at other people's stories. So these are the stories that I have written since I have my name here, and I can actually drag like my Storify story into another Storify story. So it's kind of strange thing. Okay, but even weirder than that maybe to get your head around. So I can actually copy this story address, and if I go here under story, and I put in this story URL. Now, what this has actually done is taken another Storify story and now made that a source. So if somebody has written about Facebook and Instagram and they already put together tweets and photos and reaction, I can actually then borrow from that and put it in my story. So, this is, the thing I quoted earlier, but now I can just drag it into another story. It's kind of, again, the idea is that somehow you can actually, leverage what other people have already done to help create something new. So I know that might be sort of confusing, like why would you want to do that? Actually, one of the reasons we think people would want to do this is to collaborate on stories. So we don't let you have multiple people editing at the same time. It'd be really confusing if you were in here and people were like moving things around and you didn't know what was going on. Like that would be kind of annoying to have somebody writing over your shoulder all the time. But say there's an election, and you want somebody to watch what's happening in different cities. Like somebody's going to watch Rome, and somebody's going to watch, Milan and Florence and Venice and all these different places, and putting together kind of what they are finding. Then you could have another editor actually doing kind of the bigger story where they're able to borrow from all these different other stories that people have already written and create like the big national election story. So that's kind of a way to collaborate that we think, is what a lot of users have actually asked for. Because again, there's so much stuff out there, it's really hard to keep track of it. If you can kind of divide the labor, it can make it potentially easier to do. Okay, I think, shall we finish up, I guess? Yeah, it's 11:30. Any last question? Oh, right here? Okay.
Buongiorno, grazie. Volevo sapere se avevate pensato a un collegamento con la piattaforma di WordPress blog.
Oh, sure. WordPress, yeah. So we actually do have a WordPress plugin. Let me show that. So we actually have a way, if you have your own version of WordPress, your own like self-installed version of WordPress, you can actually get this plugin, and what it will do is actually put Storify into the WordPress dashboard. So if you can kind of see, it's a little bit small here. Basically, this is the WordPress dashboard, but inside is the Storify editing interface. So you can go ahead and do the same kind of creating stories using social media, searching all social networks, and then when you click publish, it will actually go ahead and publish it to your own WordPress blog. So, it'll actually, the top menu on WordPress, which normally has new post, it actually creates Storify, And yeah, it makes it really easy to just do this inside WordPress. So another benefit of doing it this way is it also helps with SEO, with search engine optimization, because it'll actually paste also the HTML of the story behind the embedded story widget. So yeah, please give this a try, and yeah, it works really well. On WordPress.com, it's trickier. If you're using the version of WordPress that is on their site, they don't let you just embed any stories into WordPress. They don't let you embed anything you want. So for that, we do have actually a workaround too, which is let me just go here, leave this page. Go back to this. So here at the top of the story, there's email, embed, all these kind of things. If you see up here, there's actually export. So you can actually connect kind of your WordPress blog, WordPress.com does work here, other sites, and then it will be able to post things to WordPress.com. So that's a way you can actually, instead of being on WordPress, if you want to do it from here, you enter in your credentials and it'll push it into WordPress. So again, we're trying to give as many ways as possible to get your stories published, and to be able to distribute them. And the interesting thing again, which is all this, every story has this embed link at the top of it, and I wanted to just kind of show. There's this, so Andy Carvin, who's speaking here. I'm just going to find this one old story that he did. This is about this story when a congresswoman was shot in the United States. I don't know if you remember this, but you can actually kind of see here on the right, it's been viewed 55,000 times, and these are all the different sites that have embedded it. And what's interesting is it's not just NPR where he works, it's also other news organizations saw this and took the story and put it on their site. So, this is, again, he will get credit. I mean, it still has his name on the top and everything, but the story was actually able to spread more widely. So, again, on the internet, it's not just about, driving people to always come to your site and trying to get them to do that, but if you could actually have content that spreads, like a YouTube video can spread and go viral because you embed it on all these sites, we wanted to do that for a story as the object that could spread, be embedded on many sites, and go viral in that way. Sure. Thank you. Okay, I guess with that, thank you very much for coming, and I'm still here all day. If you have any questions or any feedback, this is my my email and my Twitter handle. Please, again, we're a small company and we're eager to hear what you have to say so we can learn from our users and keep improving. So please keep in touch with us. Thank you very much.